Lauren Fay is one of my favorite human beings and a dear, dear soul sister of mine. She's been very instrumental in my personal journey with removing alcohol from my life. Been an ear that I can talk to, give me advice, and just sometimes cry too. So today, Lauren's back on the show to talk about her journey with removing alcohol from her life and some of the stories and realizations that we've had through that journey. Beautiful conversation. I love this woman and I love the content. I hope you get something out of it. We'll see you on the other side. A quick personal note about tonight's episode from Lauren and I. We both recognize that alcohol and addiction to alcohol is a serious matter. Content found in this conversation is not intended to be a substitute for medical treatment or evaluation. It is strongly recommended you seek professional advice regarding your health before attempting to incorporate any advice from this program or this podcast into your life, especially if you've reached a point of physical dependence. Please reach out to whoever you need to find the help that is best serving to you. Obeisance and love. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to our show. This is the first in the new bank of episodes I'll be releasing for Journey of the Modern Soul. My first guest is a repeat guest that I've had on, and Lauren has been a soul sister of mine for a goddamn number of years. You're one of the most inspiring people on my spiritual journey that has been part of my journey. I remember the day that I met you in the studio. When we passed by, it was like, I don't think I actually said hi to you, but I looked at them like, holy shit, who is this human being that is just like radiating amazingness? Got to get to know her. Ended up getting to know you and your boyfriend at the time, Camo, and just you guys are just amazing peoples in our lives now and so inspiring. I turn to you when I have questions about energy work, things that are going on in my personal life. I adore you as a human being and I love our friendship. So thank you, Lauren Fay, for being here.
Yeah, I love chatting with you, and what a privilege and an honor to be on your platform.
Huh.
You know, we can talk for hours any day of the week, but then to put it on a podcast, it feels just fun. Like, hey, we're doing something new. I love it.
Damn straight.
Thanks for having me back.
I'm happy for you to be here. So last time you were on, you mentioned the name that you would like to be referred to as Naraya. And it's so interesting because as we see things are introduced into our lives by proxy, those things start to magnify around us. And so I've seen Naraya now a few times in these random like books I'll read or like a podcast I listen to. And I'm like, oh, God damn. And it just reminds me, I'm like, shit, when's the last time I talked to Lauren? I better call her and see what she's up to. So how's the embracing of this name and this energy and this humanness been for you on the past couple months?
Wow. I mean, what an interesting way to start this podcast, because this was just brought up to a point where I needed to see the other side of it. So this is great because, yes, Naraya was such a pivotal delivery for me at a time when I really needed it. And it was during a time when I was expanding and undoing and remembering and rewilding, and most importantly, I was learning how to trust myself. And so this name got delivered, and I really wanted to expand on it. I remember we talked on the podcast last time where I was like, I want Naraya to be a lifestyle. Like, you are Naraya, he is Naraya, I am Naraya. Like, it's a way of living, not just my name. And so I was thinking as I expand my business, it would be like Naraya International, or who knows, it's still, still in the works in that department. But so here I am today, and I have been really elbows deep, again, looking at my business from different perspectives and how I want to expand and what is my purpose and my drive. And the name Naraya came up. And I just kind of looked at my partner and I was like, interesting. I don't feel connected with it right now. And I actually felt some guilt or some confusion. And I said, I'm feeling connected to Lauren. Like, I feel like what I'm offering is Lauren, because I'm specifically at this point talking about alcohol. And I was like, the alcohol part of my story is Lauren. And he looked at me and he goes, it worked. Naraya worked.
Wow.
Like, Naraya helped you remember who you are.
Wow.
And that is exactly why it was delivered to me, to trust myself, cultivating this relationship with myself at a time where I was trying to break away from it. I didn't want to be Lauren. I didn't connect with Lauren. I was like still pushing parts of her into the corner and was like, you stay over there until I'm ready to deal with you.
Right.
And then because we're here in Puerto Morelos, where we've been idle for half of a year after 2 years of travel, it gave me enough time to sit still and to get really uncomfortable. And I started to look at those pieces of me that I put in the corner, and I brought her back home, and then suddenly I was okay being Lauren again. So Naraya, the idea of it being a way of living to like help you undo what's not working for you and bring you back home to who you truly are, regardless of what name you want to choose for yourself. It's the how do you feel, and that helped me feel like me again.
Yeah.
So here I am, and I definitely love Naraya. I still use Naraya. It's still going to be a part of my business, but I can see now how, oh my God, what I wanted to teach about it, what I wanted it to be actually happened. But I couldn't see it for myself. I had to bounce it off of someone to say like, oh, I don't know, I feel like I've disconnected, for someone to reflect back and be like, oh, it worked.
Yep. Hell yeah. That reminds.
So that's where I'm at with it.
I love that. That reminds me of like Hindu mythology, right? Where we have these masculine and feminine energies all split from, the like Shiva, for example. And, we can draw on those energies that are within us. And let's say Baba Hanuman, for example. I call on Baba Hanuman a lot to amplify healing energies in my sessions. I left Baba Hanuman energy with my mom, who's, suffering from cancer right now, to help amplify her healing energies and to keep her safe. Hanuman is the servant of Rama, right? Of servant of God. And so we can call on those energies within us to help be that person that we're looking to be, so that the humanness that we hold as these earthlings, can really learn and explore through that energy. And it sounds like Naraya a lot is that for you. It's like that energy is inside of you that was like, I need to come out of you. I need to be a very, very physical part of you right now to help you learn a lesson and to help you understand how important Lauren is. Right. And now that energy has got you to that safe point, it'll always be there. But now it's stepping back and letting the true Lauren come back and say, thanks for the pause. I think I've got my shit together now. I'm going to come back as Lauren. Naraya is still here, but this is me right now.
Oh God, I don't know if I'm going to cry or laugh or that just, that's exactly it. That was exactly it. I'm so grateful for that. And and what I'm most grateful for, though, is the fact that I was willing to get curious and get uncomfortable, because it would have been so easy to just embody like a new identity, a new name, and try to recreate something new. But then there was that part, like I said, those pieces of me that I put in the corner that I'm like, you're not allowed to sit at the table with me right now. That was just kind of like, why?
Right.
Like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Which means like there was a part of me that I wasn't accepting and was kind of like outcasting. And that doesn't feel good either.
Right.
That it didn't feel good. And the not feeling good so many times in such a short period of time for me, which was 6 months, really got me curious as to what's this about. And that's when it was, coming back into acceptance of who I am and trusting myself and loving myself. And trust has been a huge theme.
Yeah, that's really hard. That kind of concept reminds me of the ideas of going and living in a monastery. That idea has crossed my mind many a time, especially since I went to Vipassana a couple times. That idea of just removing myself from all the stressors of life and going to live in some mountainous area or somewhere that's isolated. I just have these people that I pray with or deal with or whatever. But that doesn't seem like it's a long-term goal for work, because that can solve a lot of problems in the beginning because you've taken away the stressors in life. But let's say that you choose maybe 10 years down the road to not be a monk or a nun or live in that monastery, that monastic type life, and you enter back out to the world. That world is going to be amplified 1,000 times for all the things you left it for, and all the issues that you still have to deal with are going to be magnified so strongly because you didn't take the time to actually work through those in your human way. Not to say that people are going to hide, but for me, that would be hiding for me. Like I would go and I would live in a monastery and I would think that I found peace, but down deep, I know that just be running and I haven't actually solved any problems. I've just actually probably created more.
Yeah, and they do. The longer they sit to the side, I feel like the more strength that they gain. Like putting a dragon in a closet, right? He might start with like his claws on the door, and the next thing you know, he's blowing it out with his flames, and it's like the longer I tried to pretend like they weren't there, the more I was giving my energy to them. You know, those parts of me that I wasn't like in love with, and they just kept taking that energy and just growing and growing until they became so big that I couldn't not look at them anymore.
Right. And that's it. Everything in our life just wants to be noticed. Like we as human beings, we want to be noticed. We want to be part of something. And that's every single part of our body, our consciousness, our ego, our archetypes, like everything wants to have balance and be a part of something. And so when we finally come to an understanding that, let's say the ego's been driving the bus for 30 years, that ego you can't just pry it away. You can understand that it's been living in a shadow kind of realm and love it and put attention to it and help bring it to a level to where you're able to, work with that energy. But for myself, like I tried to pry my ego away and was like, get away. I'm done with my ego. We're done. Cool. Consciousness is going to take over. But that ego is part of me, and it got me through, let's say, 35 years of my life unobstructed. Like it was running the show, good, bad, or indifferent. I could say that my ego caused me to drink or led me to alcohol abuse or drug abuse, but it also helped me raise a family. I have two beautiful daughters that my ego helped raise. I had a family that my ego helped raise. I had careers that my ego helped build. So it serves a purpose. We just got to find that place because every part of us serves a purpose, and we can find that balanced purpose. Then we raise our own energies, and then we have those beautiful moments of realization of like, holy shit, I'm okay with being a human today.
And it's just not going to go away. And so instead of fighting it, it's like, could I reach into the corner and grab her hand and like invite her back to the table and be like, okay, how do we want to do life together?
Yes, most definitely.
How can we be in compassion with one another? So every time that you're picking me and poking me, like, what is it that you're really trying to say or to show me? And then I get the choice of how do I want to respond? Do I want to respond with resistance or with, anger, or do I want to respond with love and curiosity? And recently, just in the last couple months, like really trying to learn to respond more with joy and like this inherent happiness that I know is mine that I just like don't tap into often enough. So yeah.
Well, and one of those things that, when we're not ready to hear those messages in ourselves of love and joy or feel deserved of that, we tend to numb ourselves in ways. And that's one of the reasons you reached out to me today, which, I got to say, not a lot of people reach out to me to say, hey, I have something I want to talk about on your show. It does happen. It's few and far between. But when you reached out to me and brought this subject up, I was like, yes, please. Goddamn. Yes, please. Let's talk about this. So just passing my 3-year sobriety anniversary, sobriety from alcohol, was in the beginning of May. And that was
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, right around the time when you reached out. So I'm like, you have the best timing in the world.
I just love it because you and I have had so many conversations about it before, and now it's just like really in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, who'd be the best person to talk to about this?
Let's put it on wax.
Especially because, like your story was personal choice.
Right.
And I think that's really what at some point on this podcast I want to hit on, because people that struggle with alcohol don't have to have an intervention or don't need to have like this is not an all-encompassing statement. I mean, there are many people who struggle with alcohol who do not have to have an intervention or who do not have to have a medical detox or who do not have to, even put a label on themselves. Right. They have just actively become aware that it is a common denominator in their life that is not working for them anymore. And then you get to make a choice. And I love that, your story was you made a choice. And my story was I made a choice. And there's so many other people that just have enough of the nudge to say there's got to be a different way.
Yes.
And then to be curious enough and, for lack of a better word, brave enough to be willing to try to live differently, because it's hard.
It is.
Let's just call it what it is. It's not fucking easy,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the right kind of hard, because the way that alcohol robbed me of so many things in my life was the wrong kind of hard.
Right.
And I was totally committed to doing something that was hard, that was going to give me the life that I don't want to escape from, which is why I'm 4.5 years without a sip of alcohol.
Woo. Congrats.
Yeah,
Hell
thank
yeah.
you.
And that's
Yeah.
hard because, our brain, when we finally decide to change a habit, whether it's what we consider a positive habit or a negative habit, it is one of the hardest things for our physiology to do, because our brain works on patterns. And once we create a ritual and a pattern, our brain loves that pattern because it doesn't have to think anymore. I eat yogurt, granola, peanut butter, and blueberries every day for breakfast. I don't have to think about that. I wake up, make coffee, get that, and I'm good. I read a book, right? Don't have to think. I'm just autopilot, and that's great. But when we find ourselves in those habits that we need to change, we're going against our brain's chemistry, because our brain likes those habits. And so when we have that pattern of, for me, it was work my ass off at work for 12 hours, come home, drink a bottle of wine. And that was my habit. That was my relaxation that I considered relaxing. And so when I finally decided to remove alcohol from my life, not only did I have to deal with the chemical effect that the alcohol had on my body, but I also was dealing with my actual body's physiology of wanting to continue this habit, wanting to continue this ritual, because changing that ritual made my brain hurt because it was expending more energy than I was used to. And then on top of that, I was also in some kind of withdrawal symptoms because I wasn't having the sugar and the alcohol and all the effects that my body used to think we needed to relax. And so there's just so much going on when we try to quit, when we attempt to change that, a lot of times it's not going to work the first time. You're going to have to try. You might have to get help. You might have to get a sponsor. You might be able to do it on your own. There's like you were saying, we don't always have to put a label on the reason somebody decided to quit something in their life. It doesn't necessarily mean they're an alcoholic because they chose to quit drinking. But alcohol definitely was a problem, to where the point to where they made that choice to consciously remove that substance from their life.
Exactly. Whew. There's so much we could unpack there, but I think a good place to start would be the needing to justify your reason for wanting to stop drinking keeps so many people from stopping drinking.
Yes.
It's such a complex topic, as we just discovered, and even your quick share, how much can be in one thought. It's the physical body, it's the mental body, it's the emotional body, it's the fact that we're machines and we love to be patterned and programmed, and then it's also society, and herd mentality, and the fact that alcohol is a highly addictive substance that you actually have to justify not taking.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to put the ball in someone's court to potentially win easily. And that's unfortunate, but that can just become a whole nother point of discussion. The reason why all of this even started in the first place, like I said, we landed in Puerto Morelos, back in Mexico, half of a year after being on the road for a year and a half. And I was so stoked to stay still. And then I, mentioned I got really uncomfortable because I finally was staying still. And I I have to go. I don't want to sit still anymore. But I sat through it. And in that was what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And I've got so many different hats that I wear. I have so many different things that I offer. I want to keep traveling. I'm not ready to have an established business again, location where I'm idle. So what am I going to do? And it was that real deep confusion, but again, curiosity, that helped me remember that I wouldn't have any of what I just listed if I hadn't have gotten sober.
Right.
And it literally, Adam, was like this magical light bulb went off in my body that said, that's the one thing that you know how to do the best. You know how to get sober, and you know how to stay sober. And not only do you know how to stay sober, you know how to actually lose the desire for this highly addictive substance.
Mm.
Because the reason why I had forgotten that I was so good at being sober was I don't think about it. I don't think about it. It's not a part. I don't wake up in the morning and have to remind myself, today I'm not going to drink.
Mm.
And I don't have to avoid the alcohol aisle at the grocery store. And
Right.
I don't have to turn down an invitation to a party because there's going to be drinking there.
Mm.
It's just not a part of my life.
Right.
And that has given me so much freedom to be confused on how I want to live this totally free life. Like, that's my biggest problem. I mean, amazing. How brilliant. But what it did was it made me realize that this is something that I can teach, because there are so many people, and I think especially, and I don't know statistics, I haven't done any Googling,
Mm-hmm.
but I would just hypothesize that perhaps after the pandemic, alcohol abuse numbers probably went up.
It did, most definitely.
Would be my hypothesis.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know the numbers, but I have read some studies that alcohol abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, and there were four things that were pretty big bad things that have gone up since COVID. But alcohol abuse is definitely one of those.
Yeah, and so the need is there, right? And I get to teach what I know, and that actually took a lot of pressure off for me, because I didn't have to learn anything new. I didn't have to learn how to teach something because I thought it would be a need. I get to teach what I know because I freaking did it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I'm putting a lot of work into it because it's a highly sensitive topic and it's a serious topic, and I truly want to have a good flow of the teachings. And what I had to do, though, was put myself back in my shoes of what it was like, so that I could remember what I wish I would have known.
Yeah.
And that was a tough place to be. It didn't in any way, shape, or form trigger me to want to drink or use or numb out. It just reminded me how shitty life was 4.5 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
It was dark. It was lonely. And it was dark and it was lonely. Those are two great descriptive words right there. And there's so many people in that place right now. And there's so many people that are in that place that don't even know they're in that place. And that's kind of also who I want to target. Like you said, you came home and you opened and drank an entire bottle of wine because it was a long day and it became habit.
Mm-hmm.
But then how was your sleep?
Right.
How was your relationship with your family? What was being impacted because of that choice that you were doing on autopilot? So going back to the very beginning, you don't have to be broke with a DUI living under a bridge to have a problem with alcohol.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so go ahead. I could just ramble.
No, that you hit on so many things. The last thing I want to talk about that you hit on, I'll talk about, and then I'll backtrack a little bit. But that idea of, like you just said, I'm going to work my ass off, come home, drink a bottle of wine. Right. What I didn't realize for myself was I was playing a character. Like, that was a character I chose to play, and I, for some reason, held a lot of clout with that character. People would ask me, "Hey, Adam, what'd you do last night?" "I went home and drank a bottle of wine." "Cool, good for you." I'm like, "Yes, that's my consistency," and that was a character I chose to play for some weird reason. That was the person I wanted to show up as. I didn't want to lose that moniker of the guy that drank a bunch of wine, and it was a subconscious thing. I wasn't consciously doing it, but when I finally removed alcohol from my life, it's like, there's this whole character that I've been playing that people see me as that I'm not anymore. And so for me, it was a little confusing because I'm used to playing that character, but that character was fueled by this other thing. So now I'm searching for myself, my true self again, because I'm not that character anymore. Right. And it's the remembrance. Right. And so you use the word remember quite a few times just recently. I actually got the word remember tattooed on my knuckles about a year ago. And I knew that I wanted to get my knuckles tattooed, and I was meditating one day, and I had, a bunch of words I was kind of meditating on. Remember wasn't one of them. But that word kept popping up. Remember, remember, remember. It fits perfectly. 8 letters, fits on my knuckles. But it's one of the most powerful words I think we could ever have, because that's, in my opinion, all we're doing is remembering. we're not learning new shit. We already know everything. We already know, we're gifted all that knowledge. It's giving the opportunity for us to be in the presence, the mentality to remember how beautiful that knowledge was, so that it can come into us, right? And so if you even break down the word remember, right, you're remembering something. We are a member, and we're re-establishing that member, right? So we're re-establishing our humanness when we remember these things that we've always known. And it's just like, sometimes we remember, we learn something. I'll use the word learn. We learn something new, and all of a sudden our body like lights up, and it gets these tingles, and like there's this emotion behind it. It's because you've known that your entire life, and you're just to a point now where your consciousness can be like, oh, that's right, we were that. That's cool. All right, we're stepping forth into this mentality or this emotion, this beautiful experience, because we've done this thousands and thousands of times, right?
Yeah. And the alcohol is just a mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is remembering who you are. I read a funny quote this morning that said, I didn't get a personality transplant. I just stopped drinking alcohol. and it does, because you are different. It does change you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's there's so much science behind it, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of the science behind it, but
Right.
it also changes you spiritually. Like you just said, we already always knew who we were, but when you're consuming something that does chemically alter the brain, like your forgetter switch is constantly activated,
Right.
And you just forget and you forget. And the more that you forget, the deeper down you go. And the deeper down you go, the harder it is to come back out and remember.
Right. Yeah.
So
Because we have
it
that whole freedom idea you talked about. It's let's say we graduate high school, we have somewhat of oppressive parents or whatever it is, but when we have that quote unquote freedom, that's when a lot of us start to jump off the deep end and like, okay, I can drink as much as I want, I can stay up as late as I want, I can eat all the shit that I want. And we don't really realize that the depth of these habits that are being formed from what we consider freedom. But one of the things I had to redefine when I first started my new business a couple of years ago was I had to define what freedom was, which actually sounds counterintuitive to what freedom is. But when freedom is anarchy and anything is possible, that width of scope is so overwhelming to the consciousness that we don't realize it, and that's when all the numbing starts happening, because the responsibilities set in, and I have jobs, I have laundry, I have cooking, I have kids now. Like, holy shit, I'm 23 and I have kids. All this stuff starts to come in. But when we can take a moment and define what our freedom is. Okay, so my freedom, I want to work 3 days a week. I want to work no more than 10 hours a day. I want to have blah, blah, blah. I want to spend this time with Monica. I want to spend this time with my dog, blah, blah, blah. So now that I have those parameters for freedom, I can fill in and make freedom be whatever I need it to be. And it's not so overwhelming. And then we don't have to numb all the things that freedom brings, because we are not ready for it yet. We're not mentally prepared. We're not physically, structurally prepared to accept the freedom of supervision, right?
Right.
The freedom of parenting over us, or the freedom of having our own freedom, and allowing that to just like take us over for a little while and be like, holy shit, like freedom's scary.
What do I do with all of this?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then we make choices,
Mm-hmm.
and we fill in the blanks, and some work and some don't. And some of those choices have, repercussions. And like with alcohol, for instance, I mean, it's a learned habit,
Right.
right? We're not, well, okay, I know that there's some babies born dependent on alcohol because of the mother situation. So again, I'm not going to go into science, and I'm definitely not making blanket statements today.
Right.
But in a general speaking, we're not born knowing alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
We're not born believing that we need alcohol to dance or to laugh. I mean, what toddler is out there dancing? Whoa, I can't go on that dance floor in the middle of the wedding in front of all these people because I don't have my liquid courage in me.
Right.
We don't know that. We learn that somewhere along the way because we picked up a habit, we made a choice, and then we started to form beliefs around it, believing that we needed it, believing that we wouldn't be fun without it, believing that we wouldn't sleep well, or that we wouldn't be able to do the public speaking event, or that we earned it after a long day. Whatever the belief is, solidifies that habit into us. And then, like you said, we just become well-oiled machines. We do the same thing over and over to the point where when you get home from work, you don't even know that you have opened the bottle of wine and poured it in a glass until maybe you're putting the first sip in your mouth.
Right.
Like all of it was just autopilot,
Mm-hmm. Well, when I worked in
So,
restaurants, it was even worse. Like my staff
yeah,
knew me so well that they would have a shot in a glass of wine waiting for me when I got off work. I wouldn't even have to order it. I just walk up to
yep,
the bar and it's like, "Hey, Adam, you're done. Yep, here's your shot and your wine." I'm like, "Cool, thanks, man." So I
same.
didn't. It took the whole decision making away from me. Like the decision was already made because I chose that character and that character was like expecting that in some kind of way.
Right. And this is where it gets interesting because I was the same. I was a total socialite. At one point when my drinking career really took off, I was like a successful female in a corporate job with many men,
Mm-hmm.
and in the neighborhood where I was like the new face, and I was just taken care of. Bartenders took care of me. I never paid a bill.
Mm-hmm.
It just was a status thing,
Yeah.
and I kind of wore it like a badge of honor. But so it was fun, right? And this is where it gets really confusing because I'm not anti-alcohol.
Right.
So I am not going to go out there and preach like alcohol is the devil and don't ingest it. And of course, there's plenty of things I could say that are anti-alcohol, but what I am is anti-suffering.
Ah.
So for me, alcohol was a lot of fun for a long time, and then it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't, and then what started to happen is what I want to teach to and are the people that I want to target, because not everyone has a problem with alcohol,
Right.
you know. And we can trick ourselves as much as we want, on if we do or don't, but the inner knowingness is eventually going to, like the dragon in the closet, knock loud enough where you just can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's where, I want to come in to help with the people that are just like, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Like you said, it becomes a habit. It's like your best friend. It becomes like your confidant. It becomes your lover.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes all these different avatars in your life that when you suddenly think that maybe you need to remove it, fuck, I was like sad.
Oh yeah, I mourned my alcohol loss. Most
I
definitely.
mourned it too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it literally almost killed me, and yet I still mourned it when I got sober.
Right.
That's how ingrained of a habit it was in my system and in my body, and how deeply the beliefs were that my life was literally going to suck
Yeah.
without it.
Yeah.
How could I possibly get married and not toast champagne at my wedding? How is that even possible?
Yep. I'm breaking
Those
tradition.
were yes, those were the early on thoughts.
Yeah. I had a friend one time. I won't name names, and it was unfortunate that we were proxy to this blow up. But we were at a friend's house, and we were all drinking. This is a number of years ago, and the friend's daughter comes home. Daughter was like maybe 15 or 16 at the time. Very, very smart child, and immediately just lost her shit when she saw all the people over there partying, drinking. And she says, I don't fucking understand alcohol. You drink when you're happy. You drink to celebrate. You drink when you're upset. You drink to mourn. There's no consistency except the fact that you always find an excuse to fucking drink. So what the hell is this thing for? Right? And it made me step back and look and be like, holy shit, like, that's a really fucking strong point from a child. You're 15 years old and you're like dropping this clear knowledge on us. And it's like, half the room was like, fuck you, go to your room. It's, yeah, fucking child, blah, blah, blah. You don't know. But some of us were like, man, man.
Children are so smart.
I don't want to finish this wine now. I want to put this down and go think about that for a minute. God damn, child. But it makes so much sense. Like we revolve alcohol around everything. Like it's good, it's bad, it's celebratory, it's the thing we serve, to, like you said, toast of wedding, right? We've just married this couple. We're going to toast their happiness, but it's also the thing that numbs our sorrows whenever we're at a funeral or just got broken up with or just lost a family member or whatever it is, just, had a bad day at work. We can always justify an alcoholic beverage of some sort whenever we're in that mentality.
Yes. And that kid, I missed the part when you said the child was 15 before you said it maybe a second time. I caught it the second time.
Yeah.
If you said it the first time. Anyways, that being said, that's exactly it, is what is your relationship with alcohol. So many of us don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
You drink when you're happy, you drink when you're sad, you drink when you're celebrating, all of these things. So what relationship have you established with it, and why have you made it so important in your life?
Right.
Two huge, really, important questions to consider if you actually want to reevaluate your drinking. Why am I even drinking in the first place?
Right.
Why is this so important to me?
Mm-hmm.
What am I like? And with the beliefs, what did I decide I needed alcohol to do for me at what point in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And that list is probably really long.
Right. Well, I think you made a
You
really,
know,
really good, hard statement just now. It's paraphrasing. It's how do I justify my stopping, right? Because a lot of times we don't realize we have a problem until, like you said earlier, something dramatic happens. I got a DUI, I got in an accident, I sold my kids' toys for alcohol.
mm-hmm.
I missed my child's choir recital because I was more worried about going to the bar. All these things, right? Those are a lot of the stereotypical stories people will say of like, this was the reason I chose to get sober. This was the court forced me or whatever it is. But, for people, not just saying you and I, but for people that choose to get in front of that and say, I'm not going to wait for something dramatic to happen. I'm going to stop this now. That is a whole nother thing because you're not being forced to do it. This is your choice. And that choice, sometimes the force is really, really strong and you can't not fuck up because you're taking UA tests. You have to show up for your kids. So all those things that mean something in your life actually like show up very strongly because now you're forced to look at that as to justify your being forced to stop. But when it's just your choice, you're the one that can say, you know what? Today I'm going to go back to drinking. That's fine. I'm
Yeah,
the only one holding me accountable. There's no
exactly.
court. There's no probation officer. There's no child. It's just me. And today fucking sucks. So I'm going to fucking have I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah,
So sometimes like
yeah,
that initial choice for the person that doesn't have the quote unquote problem to make that stop, all the things around it, the personal stigmas, the outside, the external stigma. Why did you stop drinking? You go out to your friends, go with your friends at the bar. I'm going to still go out. Everybody gets around. Adam, you want a glass of wine, right? No, I'm not drinking. What's wrong? Is everything okay? It's like, why does that have something be wrong? Like, I just chose to stop drinking. So there's all those conversations that continuously have to have, and you're justifying your reason for not drinking, which causes other people to either judge or self-reflect on themselves. Oh man, I wish I could stop drinking. I've been thinking
yeah,
about it for a long time. Or those people that are like, oh, you know what? It's just 2 beers a night. You're fine. It's just one shot. You'll process in an hour. I'll get you one. No, I'm fucking fine.
yeah. I know. It's like the stigma is detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
The label of alcoholic comes with such a negative connotation that people won't explore the idea of stopping
Yeah.
just to avoid those conversations and those stigmas, and the most important conversation of all that they have to have with themselves of, well, do I have a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we seek those outside validations and uh, I forgot the word I was just going to say, but when we seek that the outsider's perspective or
Mm-hmm.
input, it can really cloud our own just inner knowingness, and that inner knowingness is usually what helps us make the choice.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a lot of power in making the choice yourself as opposed to being told that you need to change your behaviors,
Right.
because let's be honest, like, no one likes to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't.
Same. I'm very stubborn in that
you
way.
know? Yeah. But, the story doesn't need to be dark, and it doesn't need to be like you've just crushed it down on rock bottom. It can just be enough of this like ickiness and this heaviness and this loneliness and this depressiveness in your life that it's just like you're just ready to be done.
Yep.
And I think that gets forgotten, that doesn't have to be a big thing. And the reason why I think that's been forgotten is because alcohol is just so accepted in our society. It is just part of our society. It is literally a part of everything that we do. It's a part of the marketing,
Mm-hmm.
the advertisings, the billboards, you know. So it gets it gets confusing.
Yeah.
And when your brain is already clouded by a substance that is chemically changing it, that confusion is, it's hard to get through. It's
Yeah.
hard to get through.
Yeah. There's a Terrence McKenna wrote a book a while ago, back in the 60s or 70s, called Food of the Gods. And Terrence McKenna, for those that don't know, was very, very big into psychedelics and mushroom journeys back in those days, exploring the effects of these just different chemicals and different medicines in our bodies. And in the book, he talks about the introduction of what they call fermented medicines, which are alcohol, right? So something falls off, it starts to die, and through that dying process, it ferments and alcoholizes the sugars, and then we eat that, and we're like, oh, hey, I'm fucking buzzy and shit, right? So he, and this is, I don't know how much factualness there is behind this, or if it's just his theory, but it's been written about by many people other than Terrence McKenna. But it's the idea that back in the day when we were living as tribes, there were about 150 people per tribe. There wasn't wars. Everybody was more or less intermingling. Like everybody lived together. We took care of everybody's kids. We fed everybody. There wasn't like, this is mine, this is mine. It's like, hey, neighbor's kid wants to come sleep with this family tonight, cool, come on over here, we're going to kick it today, or you're going to learn something from our family that you wouldn't learn from their family, right? There's this big community kind of vibe. And this is when there was a matriarch, right, where it was evenly the powers, if you will, were evenly dispersed between masculine and feminine energies. It wasn't there wasn't a king, there wasn't a tribesman, there was like a council, right? And it was very feminine dominated, if you want to use that word, feminine heavy, I guess, feminine influenced. And this is when we had plant medicines, because the plant medicine, works with our divine energies and the balanced energies. So whether it's cannabis or psilocybin or hape or sananga, these plant medicines, neutralize and help embrace both sides of our masculine and femininity. And when we switched to fermented medicines and that alcohol started to get into our system, that's when the masculine energy really took over and took rise. And that's when we started to have kings. And that's when we started to have, the council was no longer a council. It was a man making decisions for everybody in that tribe. And that's when the wars started happening, because we started going at other tribes. And then the interesting thing from that too is that the men that weren't necessarily the kings or the power holders in the tribes felt like they needed to have some say too. And that's when the whole mentality of, this is my house, my rules, you do as I say, kind of started to come in, right? And so that whole masculine energy amplified that toxicity almost of what that is from the advent and the introduction of fermented medicines. And we totally got away from that matriarch society and went to a patriarch society. And that's, and he's got so many kind of things that he can list with that. And it was so interesting to me to see that correlation between the difference between plant medicines and fermented medicines, and how long that's been going on now for.
Wow. Yeah. And, something that just kind of landed with me in that share, I don't by any means want to say like masculine equals strength and like feminine equals weak, or I don't know, that's not even the word I wanted to use. But what kind of came up for me was, in my active addiction, my masculine really revealed itself as very heavy-handed, very mean to myself. So this is what I'm trying to say. I didn't want to portray men as to be like evil and women to be good. Those were the words. That's not what I'm saying. I just, like, what came up for me was my sweet softness went away, and I became very rigid and very hard, and the way I talked to myself was mean. I became my own punching bag, and I really just was rigid and sharp, and like nothing soft about that experience.
Yeah.
And with sobriety, I think an important step, because it's so confusing, is to not detour into those feelings of guilt and shame, which hold all of that resentment and the rigidity and the sharpness, but to move into a state of grace and compassion and gratitude and like the curiosity, the self-love, all of those softer emotions. And so the masculine feminine just kind of brought out the duality of what I experienced personally, of when I was actively in addiction, I was just so harsh.
Yeah.
And then when I, took out the addiction, I softened. And so I guess that was kind of triggered by like the my house, my rules, like that really like driving that point home.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there's so much of the shadow. I'll call it shadow. I try not to use the word toxic, even though that's the word I kind of go to. I'll use
Words
shadow.
are tricky.
They are. They
It's
are. You know.
you know why, and you know why words are tricky is because I don't want to fucking trigger anyone, and I just need to get over it and say the words that are like flowing out of my
Right.
mouth.
Right. I know it's so hard to like correct yourself in real time, like
Like, how do I
because
be politically correct or yeah?
totally right. But you know when like right now the main let's say let's just use masculinity, blanket masculinity.
Okay.
The main masculinity that is being really showcased and idealized, let's take from our political leaders to our CEOs of companies. All these world leaders are very, very shadowy, and it's it is that idealized toxic masculinity of I'm the strong decision maker. You follow me. Fuck that person. I'm going to talk shit about them openly on camera and everybody can hear. And then that makes it okay for everybody else to adopt that toxic and that shadow masculinity and think that that's okay. But I mean, that's, by having and embracing that shadowness, we're never really fully stepping into that masculinity. Whether it's the masculine warrior, the archetypes that we talk about, whether it's feminine
Yeah.
or masculine archetypes, when we live in those shadows, we're just bastardizing so much of who we are by not feeling that empathy, not feeling that connection, not feeling that you are part of me. We don't share the last name, we don't share the same mother, but I am part of you as much as you are part of me. So if I am doing anything to make you feel negative, that intrinsically makes me feel negative. So finding these ways to start bringing this more into balance. And if it is going to be, male leaders that are going to be out there, let's find ways to find the balance between the masculine and feminine. I love the fact that we have, a female vice president now, women that are running for presidencies, women that are taking over offices, all these things. But I'm hoping also that that doesn't amplify that negative masculine energy, because I shouldn't say they, the women that are holding these powers now, or these positions, feel like they have to match that masculine energy in order to get anywhere, right? It's
Yeah.
like, no, let's embrace that femininity, and hopefully that will start to permeate through all the positions, whether it's, somebody that's a householder to somebody that, owns a company. Like, let's
Yeah.
find that balancedness so that we can see everybody as part of us, and not I'm the overlord over you, do as I say, or I'm going to fire you, right? I mean, it's just, there's a lot to unpack there, but I feel that balance is starting to come in there.
Mm, balance. And just, to circle it all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, that um, essence of Naraya
Mm,
was to help me remember my femininity, because I had become very, I was just such planning and execution and action and strategy and just things that were, I would deem very masculine, very uh, just not. It just didn't feel light,
yeah.
and so bringing in that balance. I love that part of me. I love the part of me that can see things clearly and strategize and come up with the best plan of action, and can make really good business choices, and is a logical, practical thinker. I love that side of me.
Mm,
But I also want to invite in the side of me that can surrender into more of a flow state, and that can open to more trusting without a plan, or dancing, even when everyone's watching,
mm,
and not because I want to be seen a certain way to get a certain reputation, but just to be seen as someone that's free,
yeah.
and so inviting that balance in. And, you know, when you're in alcohol, you're completely out of balance.
Yeah.
And when you're getting sober, it's just fucking confusing. and and you just don't really know who you are. You haven't remembered yet. You don't remember right away.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and then there's that idea that as soon as I stop the thing that is causing the negativity in my life's going to get better. And
Oh
that's
God.
that's the end result, but the journey to get there, man.
Yes.
Oh God, that
Adam,
that that fucks me up.
when I said I had to put myself back in my shoes, so it was like literally one of the top things I wish I would have known was that it was going to be really hard and really uncomfortable. And I want to say that like without that I like take it, hear the humor in it, audience. Like, hear the humor in this, right? Because obviously we have to do hard things in life. And so don't let me saying it's going to be really hard make you be like, see, I knew it.
Uh-huh.
That's why I'm not going to do it. You know, because no, that's not what it is. It's just what I wish I would have known is I thought once I took out the substance that was making me feel really shitty, I was going to feel really good.
Uh-huh.
And not only was I going to feel really good, but I was going to feel really good right away. And that is just not true.
Yeah.
We have to really remember our bodies are super powerful machines. And we're pumping it full of something that it has to work on overtime to process out constantly. And so by the time we finally take out the thing that's causing us to, operate on overdrive, our body is just like waving the white flag and is tired. It's just tired. Like, where's the, like, close the laptop, let me just breathe, I'm overheating.
Uh-huh.
And you're also you've taken out sugar, a highly addictive substance. So now you've got cravings, sugar cravings. You have this appetite that's like as if you've never eaten your entire life, and you're agitated. But why am I agitated? I'm not drinking, and
Uh-huh.
it's just so confusing because you think you're going to feel like a rock star and you feel like a rock.
Yeah.
And then eventually you level out. And that's the most important. Well, there's everything is most important, but that is a very important thing is we have to give ourselves and honor ourselves and gift ourselves the time it takes to allow the physical body to level out so that our thinking mind can come back straight. Because if we don't give ourselves that time and if we don't sit through that discomfort and trust that we can get to the other side, we will choose to go back to what is easy, and we will choose to drink because we know it'll take away the way that we're feeling right now.
Right.
And I'm not even talking even at this point about the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts that are going to arise with sobriety. It's literally even just the physical body. That's why we drink when we're hungover, because we know that it will change the way we feel.
Yep. Hair of
right?
the dog, most definitely.
And so, yes, the fucking hair of the dog, that for me was opening the floodgates.
Yeah.
If I did hair of the dog, then I was going to be an all-day drinker.
Yeah.
That was my personal story.
Uh-huh.
It literally got to the point where it was like, oh my God, Lauren, you know, if you open this bottle of wine, you're not going to stop.
Yep.
You know. And what would I do? I would do it anyways.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's so important that we understand that the physical body literally has gone through warfare and needs to repair itself.
Yeah.
The emotions have been stuffed and hidden and pushed away, and they're going to come out. The thoughts that we've been numbing out from are going to make themselves present. The feelings are going to show. We're going to start feeling things in our body, like, tuning in with yoga and breath work and all that. We didn't even know were there.
Yep.
And that is part of the process that can be a gift. How do you want to look at it?
Right.
What is your perspective on this? And if you can change that, you can change your life, and you can make it through the hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because when we're drinking, Adam, as you know, if we're going to keep making rules for ourselves and keep breaking those rules, then we're just going to we're going to lose trust in ourselves.
Right.
And so an alcoholic that gets sober usually has like an empty trust bucket. And that really, really makes it hard to trust that you can get through that initial hard period.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you that you can.
You definitely can, most definitely. One of the we go through one of the biggest change, the biggest change of our entire lives when we're born and we're the most vulnerable. We go from being inside our mothers, living in amniotic fluid, eating and breathing through a tube in our stomach, not knowing what light is, hearing a little bit of sound, but through our mother's belly and through fluid, which is different than hearing it directly. Then all of a sudden, we're pushed through a vagina, and our head is being smushed. We're being grabbed by our neck. Sometimes there's something around our neck. There's sometimes complications, and we're fighting and we're fighting and we're fighting. Now we're breathing through our mouth, and we see this bright light. And what the fuck is all this stuff? They just cut the thing that feeds me and keeps me alive. But there we are, and we're born. The most vulnerable part of our entire existence. We change everything about us, from the way that we live, the way that we breathe, eat, see, smell, everything. It changes, and then we live. So if we can do that at the most vulnerable part of our life, then we can do fucking anything if we convince ourselves that we can. And that's the thing you
Yeah.
were talking about earlier. It's like, if somebody forces you to do something, that's one thing. But for you to convince yourself that you're able to do this and you're able to be this strong, that subconsciously lands with you in a very strong way. And it strengthens all those archetypal stories that you've been going through your entire life. Think about just that birthing again. Birth is one of the first successes we've ever had in our existence. We went from, again, being in this one way to living in another way. But we have to fight to get there. We don't know what's going on. Nobody's telling us. All of a sudden, like, we're being pushed through this canal and we're like, holy shit, like, things are happening. This mouth is used for something different. There's air going into my nose. Like, holy Christ, like, all these things are happening. And there we go.
Yeah.
There's so much beauty in that transformation. If we can embrace the transformation and we can embrace the reason why we're doing it and see the good that it's going to help us with,
Yes.
it's such a beautiful thing to like think about, but it's hard.
Do you feel how like even though you've already gone through it yourself, even just sharing this kind of lit you up, how your energy kind of got lit up, like you believed in it, there was a passion behind it.
Definitely.
That is the have I already said this is the number one thing? Because this is the number one thing. They're all number one things. But what you just said, you have got to decide and believe with every cell in your body your why.
Yes.
Why are you doing this? Because if you can truly believe and feel in your body that there is a better life on the other side, or that there's a better way of living, or that you don't have to suffer like this anymore, and if you just embody that why, nothing is going to derail you, and no one can stop you, and no one can tell you that you can't do it, because fuck yeah, I can, because I decided that I'm going to.
Damn straight.
And you cannot take this decision away from me, because my body has now reprogrammed itself and it is ready to take action because I have told it this is where we're going. And so that is the beautiful passion behind the decision and the why and the taking your power back and the believing in the outcome. But you still have to make it through all the reasons why you drank in the first place,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
All of the feelings that you were, again, numbing out from, the thinking that you were numbing out from, or the beliefs that you would be nobody without it, or
Right.
that you would be a dud, or maybe a bad lover. I mean, I remember being like, what's sober sex going to be like?
Right, yeah, most definitely.
Well, let me tell you, it's pretty lit.
Yeah.
And
Feels
so
great.
all those fears can try to derail us. But if you know in your heart, in your core, in your bones that you have made a decision, you are going to choose the trajectory of your success.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to collect all the wins along the way. And you're going to be an unstoppable force. But we don't remember that at the time because we've been beat down for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's been by our actions, our drinking, our thinking. And so it does help for someone to remind you that you're fully capable of doing anything that you decide, because we're human beings. We're really powerful. We have really strong machines. We have really strong computers in our skull.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this. We can literally do hard things, even if the chemicals in our brain have changed. Like you said before we hit record, the body wants to be healthy. The body wants to repair itself.
Right.
It wants you to live a healthy, happy life. It wants to be strong. We just have to believe that.
Yes.
It has to be our story.
Yes. You have to know that. You know it down deep, that's what it wants, that's what it needs. The happier and healthy that you are, the more optimal that you're going to run, the clearer your thoughts are. I mean, just it really does. But when you're in those moments, you can't see that. We can't see that.
No.
And so when you brought this subject up to me, I think it was that day or the day after, I sat down and meditated, and I'm like, that thought came into my head about drinking, why I quit drinking. And I think I shared this with you in an email, but one of the things that popped into my head about my own personal journey, and I would like to see, I don't want to say this ruminates with others, but, I think it might. There's the justification of the reason we consume a substance, right? So let's say, it's at the end of the day, it's our relaxation, right? A lot of times we drink, we use drugs of some sort to forget about, there's like a relaxation kind of aspect around it. You know, it's our coming down, it's our winding down, it's our justification for having a bad day or a long day at work. So we come home and we sit in front of the TV, which is proven to be very, very bad for your brain because of the blue light that it gives off, but also the way that it changes from scene to scene. It never gives your brain the opportunity to actually focus on something. So you're constantly in this, basically you're putting your brain in fight or flight. Right. So there's that relaxation technique, which I'm very guilty of. I grew up, TV is my relaxation. I used to sleep with the TV on for decades, you know. And then on top of that, you have alcohol, which is, you know, it's a depressant and a stimulant. You know, the sugar is going to stimulate you and the alcohol depresses you, right? And so you have these mixtures of emotions going on in your body. So that's our way to relax. But to justify that relaxation, are we constantly looking for stressors in our life, like stressors in our jobs, stressors in our families? You know, a lot of times when I would come home from work and be like, God, I had such a long day at work. I put in 12 hours. I got yelled at by this guest. This staff member didn't show up. We ran out of this item. I'm listing all the things that were negative in my day so I could physically and subconsciously justify the fact that I've had a fucking hard day and I need to have a drink. Right. And so what it made me think about is, am I constantly putting myself in a stressful environment and noticing only the stressors in life just so I could subconsciously justify my alcohol or my whatever intake at the end of the day? So I'm all day looking for the stressors in life just to justify the thing that's going to stress me out even more, my relaxation techniques. And then it's just
Yeah.
this constant cycle of like, I see negativity, so I'm going to respond with a negative thing in my body. So I'm going to go back out and look for that negativity again so then I can have this negative thing that I put in my body that makes me think I'm feeling better. And then we're in this cycle. And that's how we are. Everything is stressful. Why are we so stressed? Because I want to have that beer at the end of the night and I want to feel justified in fucking having it.
Yes.
It's like, holy shit.
And isn't it interesting that if we need to justify a behavior, then perhaps there's a small little inner knowingness that maybe it's not, you know, the right thing to do, or isn't serving the highest good.
Mm-hmm.
But everything you said, you know, if you collect the evidence, then it just strengthens your case as to why you get to drink at the end of the night. And there's a lot of ways you can unpack that of, you know, maybe you can't, maybe it's like you can't be judged for it now because here's all the evidence of why I deserve this drink tonight.
Right.
Like, you know, this happened at work and then blah and then blah. I mean, I have like earned this drink and you're going to co-sign on that so that I feel better about my decision to drink tonight.
Yep.
You know, it's all trickery.
Yep.
It's all a game.
Definitely. And, you know, now it's taken me a long time to get to this point. It's probably within the last year. So 3 years not drinking now. Within a year, I've gotten this new habit. But now it's the gratitude practice. You know, every time I sit down to meditate, I meditate about 4 times a day, you know, big chunk in the morning and then about 10-minute resets throughout the day. But every single time I sit down to meditate, I'm showing what I'm grateful for, and I speak it. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful for this connection to my spiritual family. I'm grateful for this 10 minutes that I can just have to myself. I'm grateful that I can hear my dog walking around while I'm trying to peacefully meditate. You know, like I'm just like, I'm not looking for the stressors anymore. I'm looking for the gratitude. And in the beginning, it was as much as I was justifying my stressors, I was justifying my gratitude. Like I had to look for it. I'm like, oh, I'm grateful I caught that green light today. I'm grateful I wasn't late to work. But then it just becomes like, fuck, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for Lauren Fay. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation on this podcast. I'm grateful for the life. I'm grateful for this breath that I just took that gave me the life that I can have this conversation with. You know, and it's like when we can switch our ideas and really embrace the magic that's around us. Like, God, we're fucking magical creatures. It's so beautiful to understand and embrace that magic. And to know that magic's out there and that we can be a part of it. And I've been numbing my magic for decades because of this thing that I thought was the thing that was going to help me relax. And then get that out of there. And it's like, holy shit, I can feel things. There's energies. There's magic all around me. And catalyst for me in my energy work was getting out of alcohol. As soon as I removed alcohol from my life, I'd been practicing yoga for almost 10 years already. I'd been dabbling in energy work. But once I pried alcohol away from my life, everything just it opened it up, and it allowed me to feel my intuition deeper. It allowed me to feel my emotions deeper. Yes, I cried more, but I laughed more. Yes,
Yeah.
I was more emotional, but I also woke up not feeling like shit every fucking day. Not like waking up, putting my feet on the ground, assessing how bad I feel, whether or not I should sit up or if I could hit snooze 10 more times and justify it. I'm waking up at baseline 0 instead of baseline -20. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's just this beautiful thing to get past that cloud, to get past that veil, and to really step into this humanness that it's yours to develop. You just
Yeah.
proved that you could do it in a very negative way and still survive. How are you going to do it in a very positive way? And you're going to thrive. It's not surviving anymore. It's thriving. It's like, holy shit, look at all the fucking cool things I can do.
You're
Because,
going to thrive after you get through the confusion of what is this
right, exactly.
new way of living? I know how to suffer. I'm really, really good at it.
Uh
What is this happy feeling in my body?
huh.
But yeah, I mean, you hit a good point with the just the fact that alcohol is a depressant. Again, not going to go into chemicals and science, but I feel like that's just an important reminder because it's used to make you the life of the party. It's used to let your guard down. It's used, so it almost has a spin on it as if it can be like a feel good thing,
hmm
and it does feel good, right? Until it doesn't,
Yeah.
and it's just really important to remember that it is a depressant. But even more importantly than that, Adam, you really unpacked the golden ticket with gratitude.
Mm.
And this is not a woo-woo concept. Like this could literally be a matter of survival and not surviving for humanity.
Yeah.
But gratitude was very hard for me at the beginning of sobriety. When I finally took out alcohol and I got to like get real with myself, I was riddled with
Mm.
resentment and victimhood and self-loathing and pity and just you name it.
Yeah.
I was like queen victim card all the time, and so I was pushed into a gratitude practice, and it was very humbling in how hard it was.
Mm.
Um, to the point where the person that was requesting the gratitude from me said it could even just be that you had a breakfast. It can be that you had clean sheets to lay in. Because I was like, what the hell am I grateful for? Because again, in the beginning, things are just wonky,
Yeah.
and just weird, and it's hard to see things clearly. Um, but then, you do start to get into the maybe the weightier, the heavier gratitude start to emerge. But it's not to take away from the importance of even the little ones, like you mentioned. I'm grateful I caught the green light. Like the body doesn't know the words, the body
Right.
knows the feelings.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what words you use. If you are igniting the gratitude sensation in your body, it's going to just keep stacking them and stacking them and stacking them. And that is how we can initiate change, by having the gratitude. And one of a really beautiful practice I just recently learned, I feel like I kind of knew it, but I was reminded, I
Mm.
should say, was you're not only grateful for what you have now, and you're grateful for the past, because I can honestly 100% say I'm grateful for my addiction.
Yes.
Because of everything I have learned and where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful for the past, but also to be grateful for what's coming.
Yes.
The good, the bad, the lessons, the wins. And to not only just be grateful for them, but to be grateful for them in the capacity of they've already happened.
Right.
And that, this is full blown, like throw in Joe Dispenza here, how you create your new reality. And gratitude is a huge part of that practice.
Yes.
So if you are suffering through an addiction with a substance that's no longer serving you, and you've decided your why, and you believe that it's possible, and you start trusting yourself again, and you're committed, and nothing's going to derail you, and you're willing to look at things differently, and you're willing to retire the I know everything hat
Mm-hmm.
and take advice and guidance, and if you're willing to surrender to win, if you're willing to remember your inherent power and all of that, and you visualize and emotionalize the life you want to live, and you embody it as if it's already happened, you will get it. And I did not know this when I first got sober.
Yeah.
My first year of sobriety involved some white knuckling, involved some feeling powerless,
Right.
involved some, anger and all of that. I didn't realize that I could kind of bypass all that shit and jump right into how I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel free. But I didn't know that I could fake those feelings into reality.
Yeah, right?
And that is a game changer this is a game changer for anything in life. It's not even just about getting sober by any means. But it's big.
Yeah.
Emotionalize it as if it's already happened.
Definitely. If you can invite, like, we say this in yoga classes all the time, because in yoga classes, people get that stoic look on their face. They're in their shit. They're sweaty as hell. They're in their practice. It's a very individualized practice, even though there's like 30 people around you. And some yoga instructors, like halfway through the class, be like, okay, so engage the corners of your mouth and lift them towards your eyes. It's like you just invite a smile onto your face, and it does change your whole physiology. It lightens things up. It's like, oh, that's right. I've chosen to be here. I'm next to a good friend of mine. This is all great. And now I'm back in my shit, right? But, when we can fake ourselves into that emotion, and we can really eventually start to feel it, because the body wants to be happy. It doesn't want to be depressed. So when we can, fake it till you make it, that's a big thing for me. And like you were talking about gratitude earlier, like I couldn't find things to be grateful for. I remember sitting in men's circles before that the men around me were holding me, telling me they love me. And I just tell yourself you love yourself. And I couldn't fucking do it. I could not muster the words, I love myself. All I could do is just blubber and think of all the shit that I've gone through. But like, you've got to go through some of that stuff to realize how good life can be. Right? You don't even realize how, like, the construct of good and bad, for example, right? There's this old story, this old allegoric story about this Chinese man that lived in a farm, right? Lived in his farm. He's got a wife and one son. Son is 16 years old, strapping young man. He's, going on. He's going to, be successful in the family and all this shit, right? One day he's out in the farm, working on the farm. Cart rolls over his leg, breaks his leg, like big compound fracture. Everybody in the village shows up. It's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry about your son. That's so bad. He was going to do so many good things. We're so sorry about that. And the father's like, maybe. And the people are like, well, maybe, huh? All right. Next day, the Chinese warlords come around. And they're rounding up all the able-bodied men for the war that's about to happen. And they look at this strapping young 16-year-old boy that has a broken leg, and they're like, nah, we don't want him. He's damaged. And the whole village gets around. They're like, oh, my God, that's such good luck. That's awesome. I can't believe that just happened. And the guy's like, maybe. Because you never know. Yesterday, it was a bad thing you broke his leg. Today, it's like the best thing ever you broke your leg. Who knows what the fuck's going to happen tomorrow, right? Who knows how this information that we're processing in the ways that we can is going to be good, bad, or indifferent, depending on what the next thing is that happens. So instead of tying all these emotions and all this stuff to this bad thing that's happened in our lives and justifying our recovery of the bad thing by leaning into how negative that thing was, how do we know it was negative? Like breaking up with if I hadn't separated from the past 3 girlfriends that I've been with, whether I separated from them or them with me, I wouldn't be here with Monica in one of the most beautiful relationships I've ever been in my entire life. And those relationships were destroying to me when I got out of them. I cried. I was angry. I was an idiot. I was an asshole. I looked at all the ways that I fucked those relationships up. But what I didn't see at the time were all the lessons I was learning from the quote unquote fuck ups and how deep those intrinsically were going into me to not do that again and to learn that lesson to be the person that shows up the way I can with Monica. And there's still shit I need to work on. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a stubborn asshole and I can go into my fucking dark places. But at least I know I'm there now instead of just being like, oh, I'm just going to drink for 3 days and then wonder why nobody wants to be around me,
Exactly. Because now, even if you're an asshole, it's you.
Yes.
It's not I'm not saying you're an asshole. I'm an asshole.
I'm an
So
asshole. Oh yeah.
yeah, so it's all good. But it's us. Like, it's not altered or changed. It is an expression at the time.
Hmm.
It's what decided to be expressed in that moment, the same way that we express ourselves as passion and as joy, and when we express the sorrow and the frustration, it's all an expression of who we really are, though, because we're not changing it in any way. We're not altering it or modifying it. And And so it's like being in acceptance of all parts of you.
Yeah.
So, and, I've said it by now, it's like I'm with the love of my life, and I know that he accepts all parts of me because I have expressed all parts of me, and
Hmm.
he's still here. And it was almost in a way, when it gets really confusing, when you get into an expression that maybe doesn't feel very good, but like your body just wants to express it. For me, sometimes it's rage.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I probably look like a crazy person. Like, he's definitely going to jump ship and leave. And my body's like, but you got to let this out. You got to let it out. Like, if you're going to keep me in, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
Feel it to heal it, right? Like,
Mm.
let's throw in a little tagline. And him accepting that expression is almost a permission slip for me to accept it too in a moment of confusion. It's like, that's why we partner up, right? To get that kind of reflection and mirror work and support
Definitely.
and all of that. Yeah.
That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. All emotions are okay. All behaviors are not. So when we feel the emotions, they don't become behaviors because we felt the emotion. It served its purpose. It's moved on. But when we restrict that emotion from coming out, it festers, and then it becomes that behavior of anger, of madness, of delusion, of whatever you want to call it. Because we never gave that voice the courage to come out in whatever controlled way it was before we got manic with it. It was like, feel my fucking emotions, goddammit.
I'm feeling it. Yeah, no, isn't that right, though? Like, when we suppress and hold things in, it does dictate the choices that we make and the way that we show up. And it'll change whether you close the door gently or whether you slam it shut behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the emotions, whatever quote you just said,
All
brilliant.
emotions are okay. All behaviors are not.
Yep, absolutely. Totally brilliant. Love that.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
you had mentioned like not going back and changing, right? Changing the path that you've been on. And that's very admirable for somebody that's walked a very rocky path to be able to look at that and say, I wouldn't change that. I needed to trip over all those rocks. I needed to get my face dragged in the dirt. I needed these lessons to be the human I am now. And we can see that now. Then is a different story, right? Totally different.
Yeah.
Is there something that, not changing the path that you're on, but maybe like a word of advice that you would give your past self, or maybe somebody that's just starting to clear away some of the veil of that darkness and seeing that little pinprick of light that it's there. And once you know it's there, you can't cover it up. You just want to keep digging at it and get that light to get a little bit bigger. But it's a hard struggle, So is there something that you would like, some encouragement or something that you would?
Oh, I'm sure there is a plethora of things that I would love to share around that question. Just to reiterate, though, I truly am in complete acceptance and gratitude for my path. And I'm not just blowing smoke. Like, it's real.
Yeah.
I believe that gratitude is why I am still where I am today. Because the gratitude makes me not want to go back. Like, I did it, I learned those lessons, and I have a new purpose now. My purpose is to teach, my purpose is to share, is to help those that are suffering, is to help those with hope. And so that it's real, like the gratitude of as shitty, and it was a long run for me. Like, this wasn't just a short addiction, it was a long run.
Yeah.
Is definitely, I think, why I'm very content today with where I'm at. And with a crystal clear laser focus, too.
Yeah.
But in terms of the tickle of advice, it kind of plays off more of the conversation with the emotions. And what I've really embodied recently and how Naraya really helped me was I stopped trying to fix myself. Like, there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
I was a master seeker like someone said they had a trauma video to help this, and I was hit play. I got to learn what she's got to say because that's me, you know, and always seeking new learnings and tools to fix whatever I had made up was wrong with me. And I don't know what the big smack in the head was. It was here in Mexico when I just was like, why don't you just have fun? Like, why don't you just laugh more and just invite in more joy? And why don't you just try to go about your day in a state of happiness and see what that feels like, instead of frantically researching like a doctor in town that can help diagnose this or what, whatever the insanity might have been. And I'm totally making that one up, but you get what I'm saying.
Totally.
Of of always thinking I needed to do more. I needed to do more of this particular exercise or tool, and I love all of my modalities. I mean, I'm a Reiki master teacher, I'm a sound bowl healer, I guide ecstatic dances, all of that. But now I can do those things not because I'm trying to fix anything, but because they bring me joy.
Yes.
I can move my body in ecstatic dance, not because I need to release childhood trauma, but because I'm a fucking sexy dancer.
There you go.
And I like to move my body on the dance floor, and I love the way the music moves me. And I can go through breath work because I want to experience all those feel-good firings, again, not because I need to fix something. And there's always plenty of work to do, but I think being happy is part of the work too.
Yes.
And I just hadn't really embodied that as my truth until recently. And it's not a perfect, win every day.
Right.
By any means. And then there are days where I have to do the work. I have to feel the rage. I have to let the tears flow. I have to punch the punching bag, so that I can get back to that state of joy. So I'm not anti doing the work at all. Otherwise I would be out of business. But that would be my advice, is like, take a step back, hit pause. Before you need to figure anything out, can you just be? Are you safe right now? Because you're probably just not trusting yourself. Can you come back to trust? Can you invite in love? And can you do something that brings you joy instead? Can you make that choice that empowers you instead of disempowers you? And see how that feels. Try that on for a little bit, because it's really easy to seek outside resources and sources, and sometimes we do need an intervention and guidance and, advice and all of that. But can you pause and ask your body, what does it really need right now?
Yeah.
And for me, it was laughter. I needed more laughter. I needed to get to the point where my face hurt, not because I was grinding my teeth in frustration, but because I was laughing so much that my face muscles didn't recognize the sensation. So that's where.
And it seems like I feel like you're talking directly to me. That whole just diatribe you just went on, I feel like you were talking directly to me. And that's one of my biggest things right now that I'm working on is the joy of life. And it started with the gratitude practice and understanding that I do have beautiful things around me and things that I'm thankful for. But the joy in life does seem, and I don't mean that. I do see a lot of joy in life. I don't feel like, I feel like for myself, the embracing of joy, the laughter, the non-caring of what people think, things like that. Like that's something that's still kind of residual that I'm working through. I do feel, and it's so strange because I didn't realize this until I was in traffic not too long ago. But I do feel like I'm constantly being judged. Like I changed lanes without putting a signal on, and as soon as I did, I was just like, oh my God, that guy must think I'm an asshole back there. I can't believe that. I'm so sorry. I should roll down my window and wave. And while I'm having this whole thing, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing right now? Like I just created guilt in myself for, I should have put my turn signal on, but I didn't cause an accident. I didn't cut him off. I didn't cut that person off, right? So, it's like, it's just realizing the stories that we're in within ourselves and making the adjustments we need to. But that one's been a hard one for me, is the joy part for me. Like, I don't know, that's been a really struggle for me.
Yeah, when I reconnect, so I've shared my love story with you with my partner, but we dated 12 years ago and we reconnected 2 years ago. So we had like a decade gap, and when we reconnected, there was just so much love and excitement but he was so goofy and I was so uncomfortable. And it was because I didn't know how to be in that state of joy.
Right.
I was still so like laser focused, driven, business, blah 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 blah, like an inspired, motivated mid-30s, blah blah blah. And to the point where I would actually be like, can you be a little bit more serious, please? Like, you're making me really uncomfortable.
Yep, I feel that.
And now I can look back and be like, wow, I was asking him to dim his light because I wasn't comfortable, stepping into my own.
Right.
And I didn't, invite in guilt or shame over that. It was more just the awareness was so big that it was like, well, let's not do that again. That's a shitty feeling.
Yeah.
And I have to actually now, because it's still uncomfortable for me, give myself permission to participate in the goofiness. And I don't know at what point in my life I decided I needed to be so serious,
Yeah.
but it happened. So, okay, so now if I want to change that habit and that pattern, so I'm like, kind of have to give myself permission to do the goofy things with him. And yeah, sometimes it's uncomfortable, and other times it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So joy, isn't that interesting that joy and happiness is something that can bring up discomfort?
A lot for me. A lot. And I think for me, it feels like at times I don't feel like I owe it to myself. I don't feel like I deserve joy and happiness because only I know what I've done to the depth of, and I still, that's still a struggle for me. Like to echo what you were saying earlier, I would not change what I've done. I would not change the life I've lived, the circumstances around everything. Right. But there's still times where I just have a hard time, like, feeling the joy that I feel like I not am owed, but that I'm, like the joy of life, like everything around me. There's joyousness in life. There's joyousness in life, but there's these times where that memory of what non-joy felt like is really fucking strong, and it does take a while to like get past that feeling of like I don't deserve joy. No, not for what I've done. I've done some shitty things. So, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah, and to tie alcohol back into this conversation, I mean, personally, I've experienced very little real joy when I was in the deep, darker sides of my drinking days. So that when I got sober, it was like I felt like I had so much lost time I had to make up for. And what that did was it put out an expectation and a pressure on myself that I was going to be joyful and happy like all the time, and that I was going to suddenly become this vibrant clown or this goofy whatever. And so what happened? I failed, right? Like I disappointed myself because that didn't happen. And so it just, because it wasn't the deeply rooted habit yet. It took practice. I had to practice getting there. Again, it wasn't the instantaneous result I thought I would be promised with sobriety. But it comes if it's what you really want,
right.
And you get to decide that. There's no one is saying you have to be happy. Do what you want.
Yeah.
Free will.
Right.
Like, do what you want. If you don't want to be happy, don't be happy. But, obviously, if that is your choice, you're going to collect the things around you that are going to support you on that mission.
Right.
And take away the things that don't.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as much as, like when we get to those points of sobriety, let's call it that, where we recognize the happiness or non-happiness, like I don't want to fucking be happy today. As much as I want to be happy and I look at the things that draw on that happiness, if you find yourself desiring the non-happiness, think about the things that are pushing that non-happiness. For me, it's usually something like it could be something as simple as I haven't vacuumed the house all week. And that is driving anxiety that is very deep inside of me that I don't really realize until I put some consciousness to it. And like, oh, all I need to do is vacuum the floors and I'm going to be just fine. And I'm going to have this weight lifted off of me. But it took me to understand, to ask the question of why do I want to dig into my non-happiness right now? Why do I want to dig into stoicism? Why do I want to not have a conversation that I know will bring me joy, talking to my kids or my girlfriend or whatever it is, rather than, so what's behind that? Oh, that's what's behind that. Okay, well, go do that thing, be better about whatever you're thinking, and then show up to the person, people, experiences around you with joy and love in your life.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's really quite impressive, truly, how much those think the thinking can change the way that we're showing up in the day, and
Hmm.
especially when it's the subconscious or unconscious thoughts that we don't even know are happening. But that's how you're winning at life, is when you take that pause and you become curious. I want to look into this. There's plenty of times where my temper tantrums go on way longer than maybe I think that they should, or I anticipated that they would.
Right.
Like, I know I'm about to have a temper tantrum, but this one is just not letting up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you're leading into this one, huh?
Like, interesting. And I do have to become curious, because I get to the point where I'm like, well, I don't actually want to be feeling this way anymore. I actually don't want to still be angry at him, or angry at myself, or resentful about this, and so, like, let's look into. And it's so interesting because you use the vacuuming example. For me, I can tell it's when I haven't stepped outside yet for the day.
Okay.
If I'm inside for too long before I get fresh air. And I think part of it's because we're in an apartment.
Mm.
And so you're not just like opening the door and stepping into the yard. You actually have to, like, go down the stair, put on your shoes, go down the stairs, like, go into the street until you turn to the park,
Yeah.
And it seems so little, but all of that adds up, and that all takes energy. And maybe I create the story that it's too much, or it's too much work. But then I can get caught in the upset, and I realize, oh my God, I just need to go get fresh air. And as soon as I step outside, I'm like, why did that take me so long?
Yeah.
All I needed to do was step outside. And I'm like, just kind of in shock with myself. And I look up to the sky and I laugh, and then I invite in laughter. I'm like, oh my God, this is so silly. Now I have to go apologize to my partner, because I was a dick, and like, all just because, like, I didn't step outside and I threw a little temper tantrum.
Yep.
But what we're doing right now, Adam, is we're laughing about it,
Yeah.
and that's key.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, with this mentality and this beautiful message that you have, and what's your goal with this? What's your desired outcome for this message and this learning that you've come to?
Yeah, I want to coach people. I definitely am in the mindset and actual active work of putting together a program, an expansive, like, master's class, like, whatever label you want to put on it for marketing purposes, right? But a very inclusive, very detailed, step by step. Not like you have to follow these steps, but key points, key practices, because it's not one and done. You don't get to just do one step and be done.
Right.
It is an embodiment. It is a practice. It takes consistency. It takes dedication. And so right now I'm looking at it in the form of launching a program. And, my big dream, of course, has always been, my entire life has been to be a teacher, to be a public speaker, to spread a message. I envision myself, like, in big public speaking events. I imagine myself book launches, all of that, because I want to reach as many people as possible. What I actually do every morning, the way I start my day, is I put on a song that really lights me up, and I imagine myself in a room of 100,000 people that have gotten sober by choice, and I'm celebrating their success with them. And it's not because of me.
Right.
What I love is that I get to feel their success, because I know what it feels like to feel that good, and I know what it feels like to feel that alive. And I'm in this arena with 100,000 people, and it's almost like when Oprah's like, you get a car,
Right.
and you get a car. And I'm like, and you got sober, and you got sober. And then I'm like Tony Robbinsing it, and I'm just and I'll be in tears, or I'll be laughing, and because I'm embodying it as if it's already happened.
Wow.
I feel so passionate about helping people not suffer anymore. And it's just because I suffered in silence for so long, because I was too ashamed to tell anyone how much I was actually suffering. And it's like, I promise you, you have my word. You cannot come at me with anything that will surprise me. You cannot say anything to me that will rock me, because I probably have thought it. I probably have done it,
Right.
or I've heard it already, and I will not judge you.
Yep.
And that was what kept me drinking, was I didn't want to be judged for being an alcoholic. Okay, then don't be an alcoholic.
Right.
It's just a fucking word. Take it away. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't matter. You call yourself whatever you want. What makes you decide your why and take action? So that's what I want to teach. And so that's what it's looking like. It's looking like, online programs, eventual gatherings, and then incorporating what I already do. Like, I use the ecstatic dance example. I already teach ecstatic dance because it's a way to drop into our bodies, and we don't do that when we're drinking. So now I can teach ecstatic dance, but really help people realize you can do it sober.
Right.
So I can take this teaching and really apply it also to the things I already offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny throughout this conversation, you've kind of touched on the four healing salves of the indigenous peoples: singing, dancing, storytelling, and meditation. Like for most indigenous cultures, if you lose one of those four things, that's basically you losing your humanity. And so that's what a lot of vision quests are revolved around, or these rites of passages, to make sure that you know how to sing, you feel comfortable dancing, you can tell stories, and that you also know how to be silent and still. Right. And those four things, if you have those four things, and you're living your life in a beautiful way. But if, like for me, for example, when I looked at that, the main thing that I don't practice and I feel super awkward about is dancing. From ecstatic dancing to dancing just like ballroom dancing or dancing with my child. Like, there's something intrinsic in me that just feels super awkward, feels like I'm being judged. Like, every reason that I started drinking comes up when I start dancing as to why I drank. So I don't feel those feelings of judgment, of ridicule, of all this stuff that I know down deep also that nobody is putting on me. I'm putting that all on myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we get to get underneath. I guide drum circles, chanting drum circles. And it occurred to me just the other week when I was like, because I just don't even think about being sober anymore. It's just who I am. Mm-hmm. It's like, at what point did I become okay chanting in front of all these people without any embarrassment or fear of judgment? Like, when did that shift happen for me?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, even when I was drinking, I don't know if I would have been doing this, and so you do really get to tap in and see all these things that we can do when we let all the authentic side of ourselves show, and those rites of passages that you just shared.
Yep. That authenticity. It's so beautiful
when
it can really shine through.
Absolutely. So teaching, letting the message be spread, touching as many people as possible. Again, I'm not on this anti-alcohol campaign. I'm just like, if you're suffering and it's alcohol, okay, I can relate. So that's how I can help, So anyone that is feeling like you need someone to talk to and you want to try to do things differently, that's what I want to really make sure that I'm available for.
Wow.
And, it just feels like it is fulfilling a life purpose. Like, I went through it so I can teach it, but I went through it after I had already decided as a little girl I was going to be a teacher, and after I had gone to college to be a news broadcaster. Like, I've always wanted to deliver messages, and part of my confusion in Puerto Morelos was, what is it going to be? And then it became crystal clear that this was the message. So this is where I'm at right now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So in the interim, until this program's set up and you're ready to start seeing people and helping people in that kind of way, is there a way that people can still reach out to you, just get advice, maybe just talk to a friendly ear that's been through something similar?
Yes, I would love to start, collecting all of the people that want to reach out. You can always reach me on my Instagram, social media. And I've been honest about my journey with sobriety on my Instagram since day one. Mm-hmm. So my entire 4.5 years story is on there. Email, phone, WhatsApp. And, I still give Reiki. I just actually published on Instagram part 1 of 2 posts for my Reiki story, because my Reiki started because I was in addiction. Mm-hmm. I was actively in alcohol addiction, alcoholism, alcoholic life, whatever word, alcohol abuser, whatever you want to call it. I was actively drinking when I found Reiki, and I found Reiki because I was seeking something different. So that's how that journey started for me. I wasn't sober when I started Reiki.
Yeah.
When I started receiving Reiki, I should say. I was sober when I started offering Reiki. Just to be clear, in case there was any fuzziness on that dialogue. So I still offer Reiki, and I have, since day one with my Reiki practice as well, have targeted anyone that's suffering with substance abuse because I can relate personally. And and with that, I'm offering Reiki trainings this summer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not tied into the alcohol program that I'm creating, but Reiki is a huge part of my life, and it's a passion of mine, and it's just yet another thing I get to teach. So I feel very blessed that is an offering I get to teach.
So being somebody that's received Reiki from you and that reaches out to you constantly for advice or just, directionality on certain cases that I'm working with, things like that. You're one of the most gifted healers I've ever worked with, and I love the space that you hold, and for being being the practitioner or being the receiver of Reiki, to the advice that you give. You have a really nice way to help us find the answers instead of just give me the answer. And that's like that Socratic method, where you just sit there and you just keep asking intriguing questions, asking probing questions. I might know the answer you're looking for, but I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to lead you to it. So when you find it, you appreciate it that much more because my stubbornness will be satisfied that I found the answer. It wasn't given to me. But
and it's yours.
It's mine, right? But I adore you so much as a human being, and I cherish our friendship. And I really do feel that you are a sister of mine, family member. Like there is a deep, deep love that I have for you, and and I know it's just going to get deeper, and it's just going to keep getting stronger. And I really, really look forward to what you're going to continue to offer, and how beautiful that's going to be for the offering of the world.
Thank you so much. I'm just beyond grateful for such beautiful, reflections and compliments. I can say all the same about you. Mm-hmm. This friendship is deep, and it's one I cherish so, so much, so much. So really, there's so many more beautiful things to come, and we both have transitioned and have changed our course along the way, and we keep going more in alignment with the true north of our soul purpose, and it's just been really fun to be on this journey with you.
I most definitely love, and so anything I can do to continue helping on your journey, because I will definitely tap you to help me onto mine. Please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that. Again, you have such an amazing platform to get messages out. Okay, hello audience. Everyone has something to share. Definitely. So, utilize this platform, reach out to Adam. If you have a lesson that you learned, or if you have just a story that you think someone can relate to, you never know what someone may need to hear unless you say it. And so this kind of public speaking is so much more impactful than I think we give it credit for. And I encourage everyone to use your voices. You don't even have to be seen. Mm-hmm. It's just your voice, and share your message. Share your message because someone is going to say, thank you. That's what I needed to hear.
Yes. Wow. Well, I don't think I could have wrapped that up any better. Thanks. That was the most beautiful plug for this show that I haven't paid for I've ever heard. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Not a problem.
Well, okay. So Lauren Fay, you could reach out to her I'll leave all of her stuff in our show notes, but please, if you have any kind of inkling to reach out to her, follow that inkling, because the advice that you'll get, or just the space that's been held for you, will be beautiful, and you'll feel it. So Lauren, I love you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, love sharing the space with you, Adam. I'll talk with you again soon.
Most definitely, love. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining Lauren and I. Check out the show notes for any links and contact info. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Obeisance and love to y'all. We'll see you next time.